Welcome to season 2 of No Shelf Control, the podcast with books, booze, and banter, hosted by authors for readers, because let's face it, we're all bookworms at heart.
This season, we'll be chatting about book-to-screen adaptations and trending book talk books, which is funny because I haven't been on TikTok in a couple weeks because I just have a lot of stuff going on. I'm Lindsey Sparks.
And I'm Lindsey Pogue. Grab a cocktail, kick back, and enjoy the show. Yeah, no, totally. I'm the same.
I know. I love TikTok, but it is a really big time commitment.
Yeah.
Time suck. Like, it's not even like you just go on there and you think, I've just got like 10 minutes to kill. I'm just gonna look at stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like 3 hours later and you're like, oh.
But everybody, we are excited to talk about stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We were just talking before I hit record. We are really excited about the thing that we're going to talk about before we actually talk about the thing that we're supposed to talk about. So let's just say that.
It's a little surprise bomb we have for everybody.
It's a big surprise bomb. I mean, I guess it's not really a surprise bomb, but it's like kind of a surprise bomb.
It's a little behind the scenes. Yeah, I think so.
Welcome to the 5th episode of season 2 of the No Shelf Control podcast / YouTube show. As you probably know by now, we are alternating between discussing book-to-screen adaptations, which I think I already said in the intro, and popular book talk books. So that's just a little repeatiness. This episode features an adaptation, which I'm really excited about. I'm excited about like everything about this episode. So I'm really excited about this book, which is one of my all-time favorite books. It has a very special place in my heart for many reasons. And that book is A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. And then we're talking about I don't know if you call it like TV adaptation or just screening adaptation, because I think it was just for a screening service initially. But also called A Discovery of Witches, which I believe is complete now, although I have not watched season 3.
It is, and I've seen them all.
But I will say, so we're not going to talk about the book quite yet, but just so people are clear, we are only talking about book 1, A Discovery of Witches, and season 1 of A Discovery of Witches, the show.
But I do want to say this because we all know that Lindsey Pogue's brain is chaotic and I remember nothing. So I will say
everything and you don't know where it goes.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So I'm like, I hope I don't say something that's in season 3 / book 3, so let's just go in with that in mind as well. So.
I know too. Like, yeah, I've read all the books. I've read book 1 a gazillion times. I've read all of the books. I've watched seasons 1 and 2. Yeah. Anyway, so we're going to try to just keep it to book 1, season 1.
Yeah.
Anyway. What are you drinking?
Well, don't guess because you'll get it wrong. It's
nothing with grapefruit.
No.
Is it eggnog?
No, but actually I have some aged eggnog I should break into. Anyway, no. Thank you for the inspiration for next episode. So
eggnog in July.
Yeah. Ooh, it's supposed to be aged 2 years, so it's gonna be primo, baby. But anyways, no, I don't have that. I actually just stuffed my face with tacos. So what I am drinking is a bourbon and cherry Coke because A, I've never had it before and wanted to try it. B, I never have soda in the house. I mean, I have Squirt, but I rarely drink it. I really only drink that with pizza. But I had cherry Coke
very specific.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't drink a lot of soda, so yeah, it is kind of very specific for me. But I actually purchased some cherry Coke, that an entire like 12-pack for movie night for book club that we didn't have a single soda. So now I have 12 cherry Cokes I'm trying to use. So anyways, hence my cherry Coke and bourbon. And
can I just say that cherry Coke is the greatest pop ever? Yum.
It's the thing. It's when I go to the movie theater, I get popcorn and I get cherry Coke. Those are the 2 things that I always get. I've never bought it for myself to have at home. So that's why I'm like, let's give it a whirl.
It's so good. We don't have any pop in the house. This is me showing my regionalism with my pop. Yeah, we don't have any We don't have any pop, but we've transitioned into sparkling water in our household.
Yeah.
But man, if I go somewhere that has, I drink diet pop, but if I go somewhere that has diet cherry Coke, I am sucking that shiz down like it's water.
Yeah. Isn't it funny? I feel like people who drink soda are pretty committed, and then people who don't, I mean, like me, like I said, I have Squirt that I rarely drink. And if I do, I know when I'm going to drink it. That's when I'm having pizza, if I decide to have it. So having all the soda in the house, I'm like, what do we do with it?
Yeah. No, I this is completely unrelated to anything that has to do with this podcast, but I have gone through phases in my life where like I would always drink a Diet Coke at this exact time, and it was like a thing that I would look forward to. It was like a very ritual thing.
Nice. I think that's kind of fun. I don't have anything like that.
Yeah, it's probably really, I mean, I'm sure it was terrible for my teeth and stomach, and now I have Crohn's disease, so it probably caused that.
But yeah, I feel like everything that we love is bad for us. So
I know it's not like wine's any better,
right? And
which is what I'm drinking.
Bourbon. I'm sure that's really not good for you.
Yeah,
so we can find fruit properties maybe in wine.
Yes, know. So I'm drinking red wine. It is nothing fancy. It is just what was open.
Nice. Well, we both have a drink, so cheers to anybody who might be listening. As usual, it is our 8 p.m. recording session, so it's drinking time.
Yes,
and then after this, directly we will go to bed.
Yes, I will try really hard to edit the podcast. I do try just to get it done and ready, but it doesn't always happen. I'm gonna save working on for last, and so tell me what you're reading right now.
Okay, so I tried to prepare. Obviously, well, I read something. I don't know. Anyway, I read one of our joint
thing that we're going to talk about later.
Yeah, I read something we're going to talk about later, so we'll skip past that for a paper book. But I kind of devoured 2 audiobooks in the last week. And so I'll share that with you guys. So Tessa Bailey, she wrote like Fix Her Up and a couple other books that I really enjoyed. But she has, speaking of book talk sensations, Hook, Line, and Sinker, and It Happened One Summer. Those are huge on book talk right now. And I don't know if I don't know how, like, I don't know if it was on sale or if it popped up and just it was a recommendation. But anyway, I grabbed It Happened One Summer. Adored it. Tessa Bailey is like, she's an amazing rom-com steamy romance author. She just does like, she just is like a fresh voice. I just love her. So I devoured that in a couple days, and they're long books too. And then I immediately went into the second book in the series, which is The Sister, who I loved. I think it's only the 2 books. So anyways, that's almost done.
What's that one
called? So it's It Happened One Summer is the first one. And it's about this like Instagram influencer who her stepdaddy takes all her money away, and she has to go live in Seattle, and she meets a kind of big burly fisherman. I love it. Great.
Because Seattle's just filled with big burly fishermen.
Well, he's actually captain of a crabbing boat, but anyway.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah. So anyways, and then the second book in the series is The Sister, who she works in the film industry. They're from LA. She works in the film industry, and she brings the indie film that they're working on up to the same location, and she starts hanging out with a cute guy. She has to share, be his roommate for a while because,
forced proximity.
Yeah. Anyways, it's super cute. I think they're really great. Like I said, very fresh voice. I think I read a lot.
I just have to add, if for anybody who is on TikTok, Tessa Bailey, you should follow. I've never read any of her books, but I follow her on TikTok.
Oh, she's so funny.
Hilarious.
I love her.
Yes. And her bangs.
Yes.
They are amazing.
I love her.
They're like have a personality of their own.
Yeah. She's really fun.
Mm-hmm.
She's really fun. Yeah, definitely. But anyway, so those are the 2 I've been listening to when I'm not writing, when I've been doing a lot of writing. So, and yeah. How about you? What are you reading?
I am on the 3rd book of K.F. Breene's Deliciously Dark Fairy Tales. And this one is Kingdom of Ruin, which is funny because of a thing that we're going to talk about. And I can't believe I didn't like make this connection.
Jesus
Anyway,
Christ.
glad we avoided that. But yeah, so it's still amazing. I love everything that she writes. I just have had like a lot going on, so I'm really slow to get through this series. I paused to listen to A Discovery of Witches for like the 8,000th time. The audiobook of A Discovery of Witches is amazing, narrated by Jennifer Ikeda.
She did do a good job.
Yeah, so I'm reading Kingdom of Ruin by K.F. Breene, and highly recommend. And then I did just finish reading Resonance, which is for my Read by the Author podcast. I finished reading that on Sunday, which is out now, so you can hear the whole novella, which is 1.5. But I would recommend, if you did want to hear that, I would go back to season 1 of the Read by the Author podcast and listen to Echo and Time first, because you're going to be super confused.
Yeah, it's a continuation or something.
Yeah, this is not one of those series where you can just like jump in wherever. And then I'll be reading Time Anomaly starting this Sunday, so I'm really excited about that. I think that's all of my I don't need to show those. I think that's all of my what I'm reading right now, which means that we get to start talking about the fun thing.
Yes, I do want to say one disclaimer. I'm sure this happened to everybody who went outside, well, at least in our area, who went outside for the 4th of July. I was fully clothed. Well, obviously I was running on naked, but I had like long sleeves for the 4th of July, you know, to watch the fireworks. I had long pants, long sleeves, I had a scarf. Like, I had not a lot of exposed skin. So I'm just saying this for all the people watching the podcast, because I like keep scratching. I feel like I have like all these mosquito bites, and I feel like I'm like gross and dirty, but I'm really just itching my mosquito bites. And yeah, so anyway, I'm like, what the heck? That was how many days ago? And they just started like popping up today. But I remember when I was sitting there watching, I was like, oh, like I think something just bit me.
Oh.
Right through the clothes. What's the point? I should have just been naked at this point. I mean, come on. Anyway, so I really just have mosquito bites. Sorry if anybody's watching me turn red and itch things. Okay, moving on.
Or if listeners are just hearing the scratching sound.
Yeah, it's just
okay, so
creepy tangent.
LP, what are you working on?
Well, funny you should ask. So I started working on the next book in the Ending Legacies with you. Surprise! No way! We spent I don't know how many hours.
Oh my gosh,
weekend.
so many hours.
We stayed up late. We woke up really early. We had like 6 a.m. like sat down in front of our computers to Zoom so that we could outline the next installment in the Ending Legacies, which feel free to jump in anytime. But so if you have read The World After, go ahead.
No, keep going. I keep trying to interrupt you, but just keep going. I'll shut up.
Yeah, so World After is essentially the bridge story between the ending series and the next installment or the next spinoff series in that world, which is the Ending Legacy. So if you have read World After, that was essentially the prequel. It's a very long prequel novella, we'll call it, or a short novel, however you want to look at it.
I call it a short novel.
Yeah, short. So anyway, it is the intro into this new world. And the series that we are now working on still has Del and Finn, but it is 10 years later and a lot has changed. So we are very excited about it. And like I said, we spent all weekend coming up with some insane plot points.
Yeah, it was intense. It was a lot of thinking.
Yeah, it was at 6 a.m. We're like, what's happening right now?
I know. I think I remember one day when we started recording, I was like, I'm not awake yet.
Mm-hmm. And we knew we had only limited time. So we're like, it's like that pressure to get working, but then you're like, staring at the wall because you're still like,
I was just like staring. I remember doing that. But okay, so yeah. So this is World After. This is the current cover. We are in the process of recovering this one and then the
whole
series
brand.
Yeah. Because we were a little fuzzy about what exactly we were going to do with it when we wrote World After
Mhm.
genre wise. And since then we have settled, well, there's like a lot of reasons, but like both LP and I have really, I mean, I say this, but then it's also not true. So, but we're really focusing more on the fantasy side of things, as I'm currently also writing a sci-fi series.
I know. I think we know what you mean, though.
Yeah, like definitely a lot more. We're both really like, yeah. None of my explanation is going to make any sense because I'm basically just talking out of my butt. So,
well, it works for me. I'm writing a lot of historical fantasy right now. So this actually works out perfectly because that's exactly what it is. It's got the sci-fi in there, but it's so far in the future and it's so historical in a lot of ways that it actually turns into.
It's like, as the centuries have passed, they've gone backwards in time and reverted to an old way of life. Plus then the abilities from the ending series. So this is a direct, well, it's not a direct continuation. It's a 300 years later continuation of the world from the ending series, which starts with after the ending. But in that series, there's a virus. That series is 100% post-apocalyptic, right? / mildly dystopian when you get to the end of the series. But there's a virus and it causes like a genetic mutation that gives people these kind of X-Men like abilities. Mm-hmm. And so now flash forward 300 years and like so like 95% of people died, 4% of the survivors went completely nuts, and then only 1% actually had the abilities. And so that's that 1% that was left to like rebuild the world. So everything fell apart. Mm-hmm. And they had to rebuild from the ground up with a completely new infrastructure, everything. And so they really relied heavily on the abilities, which means technology was not as big of a deal. And that is, 300 years later, stuff changes.
Yeah. So we've created this whole new world loosely, or not loosely. I mean, it's directly based on what we created for the ending series, but feels like a whole new world connected to the same series because it has a different feel to it. It is a whole different society. Yeah. And the way people think, because you think about it, like the ending series was all about these people who had normal lives and then they had to learn how they had to reacclimate. Whereas all of these people, this is all they know, and it's all they've known for 300 years. So yeah, it's obviously very different.
So it has a very historical fantasy, like genre wise, we're like, we don't really know what to do with it, but we're just kind of sticking with like historical fantasy, even though it's in the future, and like fantasy romance, because there is a romance plot line that is integral. Like you couldn't like take the romance line out of it. And like epic fantasy. Yeah. Even though it's not secondary world. I mean, like it's like every single thing that I say, I could say, even though it's not like, but still that's where it fits. So we have given the cover designer who's working on this series, and they're also going to be working on the ending series for the 10th anniversary editions, like an impossible task, which is going to be to make the two series look related, but also look like they fit in their appropriate genres.
Good job. We'll see how they go.
Yeah, good luck.
Well, that's why we pay them the big bucks. They got to figure it out.
So, we are really, really excited. LP's character is Finn. And I'm so happy that she's already you who I'm talking to right now, but I'm also like talking about you to the listeners. But LP has already created her character portraits on Artbreeder, which is something that I'm going to be doing tomorrow or Friday for my characters. And they're great. And for the ending series people, I don't know if you had already created him, but she did Jake.
I did, but I did change him just a smidgen because it's been 300 years. He looks the same, but he's a little more scraggly.
He's great. He's perfect.
Good.
And I loved Finn. I love how Finn looks, which makes me really excited.
Can I just tell you, like, I made a TikTok about this because it's so funny. So Dennis thinks that I might have told you about it already, but everybody you make on there is either really pretty or they look like they're dead zombies. Like it's really hard to do an in between, right? Yes. I want Samara from Titan Tempest to have scars on her face, and she either looks like she's dead with zombie face and rotting flesh, or she has no scars. Like there's not a lot of in between.
Yeah, it's really hard and it takes a lot of iterations.
Yeah. So yeah. So anyways, he's always like, why do all your characters, why do they look so attractive? And I was like, because it's really honestly hard to scruff them up. I've tried. So I made Finn and I showed Dennis and he goes, well, if he didn't have green eyes, then he would just look silly. And I was like, why? He's like, well, his hair. And I'm like, because it's like red orange. And he's like, yeah, he would just, if he had brown eyes, he would look like a dope. And I'm like, okay. He's like, the green eyes make it for me. And I was like, okay.
Oh my God, that's
Thanks,
hilarious.
Thank you for judging my characters.
Well, I like him, which is important because my character is in love with him.
Yeah.
So. That's what matters.
I know, right?
So yeah. And I feel like I have so much to talk about related to this. And we haven't actually talked since our brainstorming, other than a couple of very, very quick things.
Yeah.
And a couple of and some lots of chatting on.
Yeah, we're just doing timeline check-in stuff.
Yeah.
That,
But we have both written 2 chapters, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've both written 2 chapters now. I am starting chapter 6 tomorrow. I'm really, I'm going to go back through the first few chapters and spruce some stuff up now that I feel like I'm settling back into Dell's head.
Yeah, I agree. It's so hard. It's I feel like the first few chapters are so hard because not only are you reacquainting yourself with the characters, you have to do all new world building. I know we created the world, but this is also 10 years later, so it kind of
oh my gosh, I'm think they're totally different people than they were. I mean, know Dell has made a complete it's so interesting. I feel like the chapter that I just wrote, it ended up with her talking having an internal reflection about how much she has changed over the decade that's passed between the events of World After and where we are now. As she's sitting beside her mother's deathbed, she's just thinking about what she's going to have to become to take over this kingdom if she's going to do it. She has these huge decisions to make, and she's just she's night and day from what she was. She's not that idealistic princess.
I am exactly the same. I was so comfortable writing Finn before because he was cocky, and I don't get to write a lot of characters like that. So I had a lot of fun when I was writing him. And it's 10 years later and we know what the history has been in the last 10 years. And so I'm sitting there writing him, and then I have this friend who's so fun and doesn't take life seriously. And it's so weird to write his friend as that character that Finn kind of used to be, and now Finn's the serious, cynical one. And I was like, this is so weird, but it doesn't make sense otherwise, it just doesn't. So I totally get it. He's done a 180 too. So
I like it. I'm really excited for them too. I was thinking about this while I was cooking dinner earlier. I was just I'm so excited for Dell to see him again. I know this, I'm really excited about the scene when they're going to see each other again for the first time. It's just it's going to be a really cool scene. But I'm just so excited because I feel like Dell has been, for many reasons, hanging on to this idea of who Finn was when she knew him for a very brief period of time, brief but momentous period of time.
Right.
But she has been hanging on to this idea of him for 10 years. And then she's going to see him again, and he's going to be so different from what she remembers. But in a good way. But it's just going to be a shock because it's going to be he's not, it's a totally different person. She's going to have a hard time putting the two people together and accepting that the young man that she remembers isn't there. He's not out there. This is him.
It's interesting you say that because I was thinking about that today when I was working on his second chapter. And as the princess, he knows about her. He hears about her all the time, where I know it's different, where she doesn't hear about him. He hears about her all the time. He knows what's going on. And then he actually sees her, not in person, but he sees her. And then it makes all the stuff he's heard the last 10 years more real. And it's a whole new slash, to kind of everything that's been going on. And so it's really interesting. It's really cool to see, us authors talk about these characters that talk in our head, but Finn isn't talking into my head or anything, but he is literally driving the story. I feel I feel like I messaged you today. I was like, we both did. We were like, we're changing our chapters. We're switching them around because it just feels right, but it's not going to affect the actual story.
Yeah, it was just like
characters are driving it in a different.
Yeah, it was just like a I don't know, chronology thing, order of events, like what made sense for what order would the characters do these things in, and like thinking about their motivations and stuff. And I don't feel like I've talked about it too much on this podcast. I know I've talked about it a lot on Sparks Notes, but making playlists has become like an integral part of my writing process ever since Song of Scarabs and Fallen Stars. And so I started making a playlist. Well, I started making 2 different playlists at the same time. I never put the same song on 2 book playlists. First off, let me say that. Because once a song gets added to a playlist, it's like permanently tied to a scene, and I can't like untie it and put it somewhere else. It just doesn't work. But I'm building a playlist for, well, now we are building a playlist. LP is now a co-owner of this playlist. But we're building a playlist for The Ending Legacy, and I'm also building a playlist for my Patreon serial, and they have 2 very different kinds of songs on them. But it's been really funny to like, I'll like just be having Spotify recommend songs to me, and I'm like, ooh, that one can go here, ooh, that one can go there. But when I was making dinner, I was listening through the songs I had already added to the Ending Legacy playlist.
Me too. That's what I was listening to. I was making dinner.
And I already have scenes that they're tied to, like, or like for me, the songs are either tied to a scene or they're tied to a character situation, I guess. So there's a one song that goes with one of my very favorite characters, which is Gareth. And so like I was like, this is so perfect for him.
That's fun.
Yeah. And Gareth is like very much like a Ser Jorah Mormont kind of character.
Yeah.
To Del.
That's a good comparison.
Yeah. Like loyal to the end, but not romantically involved, I guess. That's what I would say. I'm just like so excited. I've got like a bunch of songs on there for Del and Finn and their past and their future. There's one that's like for a moment that I'm really excited about that happens in like a tower. And I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I won't ask you to explain. No.
I'm so excited. I love it when a story starts like talking to me. So
percolating in there and really taking over. Well, I was telling you, we were going back and forth, which we should actually talk about the title. But I was telling you the other day, I was just like, I like didn't sleep. Every time I stirred, all I could think about was new title options. I was like, oh my God, like I got like no sleep. And then we had to wake up and start working at 6 a.m. Well, we started working at 6 a.m. Let's be clear. I woke up before that. So I was just like, I've been dreaming about names, came up with pretty much nothing, yet it's been on my mind for the last 8 hours or 6 hours. And then we sit down to talk about it. Oh man.
Yeah.
All right. So why don't you go ahead and announce the title for book 1?
The title for book 1, which we were laughing about, Kingdom of Ruin by K.F. Breene, because we almost called it Kingdom of Ruin.
Yeah.
Like it was like 99% there.
And then I was like, just so you know, isn't that a series you're reading? Like it's book 3, so maybe it doesn't matter, but
I was like, oh, this is the same genre.
Yeah.
Just a little less steamy, at least in book 1. But yeah, so it's not going to be Kingdom of Ruin. We'll tell you that.
Yeah.
It is going to be The Raven Queen.
Yes. That's exciting.
We both just love. I think.
Well, and I think if listeners have read World After, they can assume why. I mean, that's might be kind of, or if you look at the cover.
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, like we can explain that too if you haven't. Yeah. If you look at the cover, which is a little unclear as to whether that's a raven or not, but it is. But I mean, it's clearly a bird. So Del is the princess of the Corvo kingdom. Corvo is like the family of birds or I guess Corvidae, but is the family birds that ravens belong to. And their crest is a raven. She has a raven. His name is Sid. They're just all about the ravens.
So
ravens are cool.
And she's the princess.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that
if she became a queen, she would be the Raven Queen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exciting. And just to be clear, Finn is not royalty whatsoever.
No.
But he is kind of royalty in his own right because he is related to the patrons. Yeah.
Which for the ending series people are like Jake and Zoe and Danny and Jason and
yeah. So he's a direct descendant. So yeah. Anyways, very interesting. If you have not checked out World After, it is not an audiobook, but it will be eventually when we get the series going.
Yes.
Right now it is an ebook and paperback, and I would suggest holding off on the paperback until we get the new covers.
And you absolutely do not need to have read the ending series to enjoy World After.
Nope, you don't.
It definitely does bridge the two. Like it relates to things that were in World before, which was a little novelette thing that we wrote, or I guess like a story compilation that we wrote after we finished the ending series. But you don't need to have read the ending series to read World After.
Yeah.
And to enjoy it.
Yeah. So anyways, we will continue to fill you in, but we're excited because this is also the first thing we've worked on together in like 2 years. So
yes,
it's kind of reinvigorating too.
It is fun. Super reinvigorating, and there's just like something. I mean, I guess it only works when you have like the right partner, but there's just something so magical about, and that I miss so much about when we used to go on like all of our walks and stuff, our brainstorming walks and stuff, is just that like back and forth of. And if I ever feel ambitious, I'll pull some fun stuff out of the videos. But it's like I remember moments where it would be like, oh, and then you would be like, oh yeah, and then it would just like
off of it.
Yes, and it just like escalates, and it's like you can feel the energy.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, so that's fun.
Yeah, and I feel like I've said this a few times, but being an author, like, it's kind of a lonely thing, a lot
Super
of people
lonely.
say it, like, you work in your office and you work by yourself and you're in your own head and you're coming up with stories. And I mean, if you're really lucky, you have readers and you have you have people you can bounce ideas off of, but you're creating a story on your own in the end. So it's very different than working on something with someone. So it's just kind of, I think that's why it's so refreshing too, is it's fun to work on a story where you're not just beating you're not just sitting there like racking your brain trying to figure out, well, there's a plot hole and I have to figure it out on my own because it's my story. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you can just sit down and bounce ideas off each other and in 10 minutes you're like, oh, there we go, we figured it out. It doesn't work that way when you have to go on a lot of walks and take a lot of showers and you have to take a step away from your work, and it's different. So
I love that you have to go on a lot of walks and take a lot of showers.
I mean, all the things.
It's true, 100%. Also, the other one that really helps me is driving.
Yeah,
I always have good solutions when I'm driving, which is frustrating. Shower, walk, driving.
Nothing
I don't have a way to write it down.
Yeah.
I mean, I could take out my phone when I'm walking and like, or like say something, but it's not the same.
Well, anyway, that's where we're at. Obviously, we're excited. Hope we didn't just bore you for the last 30 minutes of all the stuff we're working on for this.
Oh, but I'm really excited. We'll share the cover when we have it, and let you guys know when we have a pre-order up and all that fun stuff. And like when we have a description. And
I know we are aiming for the very beginning of 2023. Yes. So like literally like the 3rd of January.
And can I announce the thing for the other podcast that we'll be doing?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So in probably starting in November, we are going to be reading out loud together, alternating. I don't know. We're gonna be reading our own chapters of World After for the Read by the Author podcast. So I guess that would be season 3.5 of that podcast. So that's going to be really fun. We'll be doing it together. Live.
So everyone can watch me or listen to me go, oh wait, that's not right, let me start that line over.
That's fine.
I mean, it's not my thing. I say this all the time. It's not my thing reading out loud. I've kind of gotten to the point where I don't really like, it is what it is, but it's definitely still not my favorite thing. I am not a thespian in any way whatsoever. Like Lindsey Fairley Sparks will stop and she'll be like, oh, that's not the right voice. I'm like,
That's
no,
true,
we're just reading it through.
Yeah.
So if you guys are going to be listening for the theatrics, you might want to
I'll do the theatrics.
Yeah. Dell chapters will be super fun. Finn's chapters will be, I mean, I might put a little oomph in there, but I'm not going to be like, this is Sid talking, and like a freaking
I don't think he's a parrot
voice or whatever. I know, I'm just saying. I was the first quote unquote character I did come up with. Yeah. That might sound different than a normal person. Beast makes an appearance, but I don't think that works.
Yeah, you'll have to hold up Beast, the real Beast, the inspiration for Beast.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so we'll keep you posted on that. That will be fun. That'll be a fun thing we're going to be working on. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So are we ready to transition?
Let's do it.
All right. Mega huge spoiler warning. As always, we are not holding back. So all the spoilers,
all the things.
So if you have not read A Discovery of Witches or watched the show, and I mean, more so like the book, I would say, I don't know, either, I guess. You're going to be spoiled if you haven't. So there. Yeah. I'm going to read the description of the book. And then we'll go from there.
Ian.
A richly inventive novel about a centuries-old vampire, a spellbound witch, and the mysterious manuscript that draws them together. Deep in the stacks of Oxford's Bodleian Library, young scholar Diana Bishop unwittingly calls up a bewitched alchemical manuscript in the course of her research. Descended from an old and distinguished line of witches, Diana wants nothing to do with sorcery. Do they call it sorcery in the book? I don't feel like they do. They call it witchcraft, magic. Anyway, yeah. So after, I mean, it's okay. Anybody who writes books or whatever knows that usually the person who wrote the book doesn't write the blurb, or if they do, I mean, it's not usually, sometimes it's somebody who's never even read the book who writes the blurb.
Which may be the case here, is what she's saying.
So after a furtive glance and a few notes, she banishes the book to the stacks, but her discovery sets a fantastical underworld stirring, and a horde of demons, witches, and vampires soon descends upon the library. Diana has stumbled upon a coveted treasure lost for centuries, and she is the only creature who can break its spell. Debut novelist Deborah Harkness, which is so funny because I feel like she is so established now. Deborah Harkness has crafted a mesmerizing and addictive read, equal parts history and magic, romance and suspense. Diana is a bold heroine who meets her equal in vampire geneticist Matthew Claremont. Also not necessarily the adjective I would give him, geneticist. He's so much more than that. Sorry, just critiquing
the
this
things
description.
Authors need to think about when they're writing their blurbs. Yes.
And gradually warms up to him as their alliance deepens into an intimacy that violates ages-old taboos. This smart, sophisticated story harks back to the novels of Anne Rice. I'm really glad that this is in here, by the way, but not the Anne Rice part, but it is as contemporary and sensual as the Twilight series, with an extra serving of historical realism. And I'm really glad that they mentioned the Twilight series, because I have always felt like A Discovery of Witches was like a grown-up version of Twilight. And if you look at it and analyze its beats, it is like beat for beat very similar.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, in terms of like the relationship, like there's no academic mystery in Twilight, right. But the relationship between Diana and Matthew, and the relationship between Bella and Edward, and like his trajectory, and he leaves and he comes back, and like how he rescues her, like that stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And then he rescues her later. I mean, it just is very, if you really think about it, they're very similar.
I like that. God, it's been so long since I read the Twilight.
I know. I think we talked about how
we should do it.
We're gonna do Twilight for one of our adaptations.
And then we're gonna be like, we might cringe when I feel like, actually, I know I liked that one.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been so long. I feel like it could go either way.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Moving on.
I feel like if we do, okay, so I do want to say, I feel like if we do Twilight, that we should do like a live viewing of Twilight with like our reactions.
Oh my God, that'd be so fun. I don't know how we would do that, but we should figure it out.
I don't know either. Maybe on TikTok, it could be like our first ever live.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's talk about this. This is,
okay.
I like this.
So, anyway, I don't feel like it aged well. The movie. I don't feel like the Twilight movie aged well.
I mean, the special effects were bad to begin with, so it definitely didn't get any better.
Oh man. Okay, so I want to say that this was published in like 2011 or something. It was before we published our books.
Yeah, and I want to say that I feel like when we first met working at the bookstore,
it was on the new releases shelf.
Yeah. I got the ARC, so it.
Oh, you did.
Like that. Maybe I got it before you came, but I remember us both reading it when you first got there, and that was like, yeah.
Let's see.
That was something that we had talked about when you first came, and I was like, "This is the new Lindsey. I'm the old Lindsey, and we're gonna be friends." Or no, I don't know how we did that, but
I have
actually 3 of us.
First edition. Pretty sure. I can't remember how you tell, but I think it first, I don't know. 2011, yes.
Nice. You have the art copy on my bookshelf right now. I don't have any fancy editions. But yeah, so that was, I mean, it's been a while and that book is still going strong. I still see people talking about it on TikTok right now. It's like,
oh yeah.
So,
anytime I mention it on TikTok, people are like, oh my God, I love that book so much. I'm like, yes, my people. So I will say, like, A Discovery of Witches has a really close place. That's not the right term in my heart.
A soft spot
in my heart. I have a soft spot in my heart for Discovery of Witches. I don't know. Anyway, it definitely was a big inspiration for me with Echo in Time and the Echo trilogy. It was my favorite book at the time when I wrote that, and I definitely feel like I've had the most flattering thing that somebody can tell me, one of my readers, is that Echo in Time
like reminiscent of it
is reminiscent of A Discovery of Witches, and I'm just like, oh my God, thank you. So I genuinely adore this book so much. So tell me what you did to recap your mind.
Yeah, so this was a tricky one because I read the original story years ago, and so obviously when the series came out, I watched the first season, and then I took like 2-year break, and then it happened to be over. I've only ever read the first book. Don't stone me.
Okay.
I have the other ones. I've only ever read. They're so big, and
I know they are really big.
Actually, read them.
They're like right there.
Yeah,
right there.
Yeah, no, I have them. So what I did was, and here's the other thing too, you guys. I have so many streaming channels. When I get free access to something, I devour it because I don't know when I'm going to get it again. And this had all 3 seasons, and I watched all of them. So I have to go in saying this. I've only read book 1. I've watched all 3 seasons, but that was all a ways time ago, right? And then we're going to be talking about it. So I listened to book 1 again, and now I'm like really fresh on book 1 as far as what happened. But then I'm thinking of season 1. Okay, that was 3 seasons ago, a year ago, when I watched all 3 seasons. So I'm like, oh,
that's funny. I watched like a YouTube recap of the season 1 of the show because I watched it twice.
I should have probably done that. Yeah.
Well, it was helpful. And it refreshed me on some of the differences between the two. And I will say I would never stone somebody. Well, I would never would not stone you.
But someone else, people be on the lookout. Okay.
I'm not mad at you about that. I've only read the whole series one time.
Okay.
And I have read the first book a gazillion times. To me, the first book is like perfection. The series gets a little muddy. I still love it. I love the history. I love the time travel stuff. I love the world that she set up. Diana gets a little Mary Sue-ish. And it gets really frustrating. Like everybody loves Diana.
Okay.
Diana can do it. She's like super powerful. So that got a little bit frustrating for me. And I felt myself like rolling my eyes a little bit when I read the complete series. And I will say, book 2, the first time I tried to read the whole series, I stalled somewhere in the middle of book 2. It's just like, it gets really long in the Elizabethan time period.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, because book 1 itself is really long. Like, I think, and we can talk more about this, but I think that's one of the things, like, I enjoyed the first book, but going back and after seeing the show and then going back and listening to the however many hours it is to listen to book
it's
1.
like 25 hours or something like that.
So it's like, I feel like there were a lot of places where I really appreciated the extra explanation that isn't in the story.
Yes.
But there are other times when I'm just like, I don't know if it's because I've seen the show and I'm like, okay, let's keep going.
Like, I don't know that I need like this extreme description of the meal.
It's hard to, So, I mean, she definitely likes her, descriptions and stuff. But again, that's probably what people love about that.
Yes,
book.
like I said, to me, A Discovery of Witches is perfection in a book. Like, it is a perfect book. But A Discovery of Witches is my comfort book. It's my comfort book. If I am in a reading funk, or it's a book I can read when I'm also writing something, which I can't usually do.
Right.
Because I've read it so many times that I already know what happens. Like, sometimes I can read my own books when I'm writing, because it is a story that's from my own head. So it doesn't
It's different.
Pull me out. But there's definitely, I think because I've read it so many times, there's like, I've noticed a lot of little things that I'm just like, you can only read something so many times before you're like, oh, here we are again.
Yeah.
So, but this was my first time reading it since watching the show. So that was interesting. Yeah. So I think my first question is going to be about the casting.
Yes.
Because I have lots of thoughts. I know my readers have lots of thoughts. I asked them about their thoughts. And so I'm going to share some of their thoughts.
Okay.
Also,
that's exciting.
And I have thoughts, and I'm sure that you have thoughts. So did you have feelings about the casting choices?
So I think the one that obviously, I feel like this is obviously, maybe not, but that stood out to me the most is Lindsey Duncan as the mom, because she's
as Isabeau.
Because she's supposed to be young, and she's like a lot older.
Yes,
which I think,
and I love that actress.
Yes,
I love that.
I don't think it was a bad decision, but it's a surprising one. I think
it doesn't fit because then Philippe, which you don't actually meet in book 1.
Okay, that was going to be my question: is how did that work?
Yeah. So Philippe, they're vampires. They were turned into vampires when they were young, or in the prime of their lives.
They age him in the show as well. Then is what.
Yeah. No, okay. They were young. They were like prior, But yeah. So multiple of my readers mentioned Isabeau. But one of them did say Deborah Harkness apparently always imagined that actress as Isabeau, which is why they made that choice. I don't know. I'm assuming that.
I know she consulted, so it makes sense.
Yeah, I'm assuming that was accurate. However, based on the descriptions in the book,
yeah, definitely not.
I
was surprised when I was rereading it. I was like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, no.
They made it very clear she was very young and beautiful, and younger than Matthew, I think, even.
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah. Enough that, Diana's kind of disoriented
Yeah.
by it. And Isabeau is just like a force anyway.
I feel like the personality that was portrayed was the same, was spot on. Yeah.
But just the physical description. And so and also, again, this is an issue. This is more of a, like, if you read the books, you would feel a disconnect. However, I thought she did an excellent job in the show. And I did not look up her name, but I have seen her in other stuff and liked her. The actress who played Miriam.
Oh, really?
I loved her. In the role. But Miriam is supposed to be like, when Diana first meets Miriam, she sees her from the back and she is surprised when she turns around and sees that she's a grown woman. She thinks she's a child.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
She's
Okay.
a very diminutive woman.
Interesting.
And
she has a personality of a freaking, like,
yes, she's a firecracker. She's still a firecracker in the books.
Right. But
she is tiny.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, no, but I do love
details.
This version. I mean, it's not really, it doesn't like change her personality. It doesn't change the character per se, other than she was specifically described a certain way in the books. And she is an average sized to tall woman in the show. However, personality wise, I feel like the actress is spot on. And I don't feel like size is as important as the age issue with Isabeau.
Right.
So, or the age appearance issue with Isabeau. So those are the two. Oh no, my readers also mentioned Matthew. I love Matthew Good. Let me just say, I love Matthew Good, who's the actor who plays Matthew, which is funny that that's his name.
Yeah.
But Matthew is, and I really paid attention to this when I was reading this time. Matthew is described as like a very big dude, like burly, like a warrior. And Matthew Good is
definitely doesn't have that.
No, he's very scholarly looking. I mean,
he definitely plays the genetic, like if you're reading the blurb, he looks like he's
yes. And he's tall. He's definitely tall, and he's not like skinny or scrawny, but he is slender, and so that there was definitely
I can see that.
Yeah. And then I felt, I mean, there's just like Baldwin, I didn't feel like fit his character, the casting. I have read this so many times. So
yeah, no, I get it.
I have very clear pictures. I was happy enough with Diana. I absolutely adore the casting for Sarah and M.
Yes,
so
I think
much.
That's perfect. I think they did such a good job.
Yes. Alex Kingston, who people would recognize as River Song from Doctor Who, is Sarah Bishop, Diana's aunt, who is another force. I love how many strong women there are in this series. I think it's beautiful. But Sarah is just awesome, and the way that the actress brings her to life is amazing. Sarah and Em's relationship has always been one of my favorite things about the book. I just love them. So, and then I thought Marcus was also a great casting choice. Yeah. I don't know the actor's name, but I thought he fit perfectly. Yeah. So, did you have any other feelings about casting?
I love Teresa Palmer, so I'm like, I think she did an amazing job.
She plays Diana.
Yeah, sorry, she plays Diana. It's funny you mentioned Baldwin, because also it's weird in the show that he changes actors a couple times. So who actually portrays him in the show?
He does?
Yeah. So
how did I not notice that?
Yeah. So it's interesting that you brought him up, because I never knew really what to think about him, because even in the show, like I said, it kind of feels discombobulated. I did feel like he was portrayed, well, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I felt like, at least from what I remember from season 1, he seemed way more conducive to what was going on in the book than he did in the show. But then again, in the show, the council was a huge part of the first season, which it's really only introduced at the very end of the book. So I don't know. It's kind of, hard to.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, in the series, he's 2 different actors. So.
Oh, I'm going to have to look that up. Is it in season 2 that they change, or is it in season 3?
I think it's season 2.
I'm gonna have to, because like I said, I have only seen half of season 2. So
yeah, double check. I don't know. I might be wrong in the season, but I know for sure that they changed. I had to look it up because I was so confused. I'm like, wait, who's this guy? I'm like halfway through. I'm like, wait a second, this is the same guy. What's happening?
Okay, I'm gonna pay attention to that.
Yeah, I should.
Okay, so what are your favorite things about this story in general? Book, show, like any, just like, because I do feel like for the most part, the show is at its core true to the book.
Right.
So about A Discovery of Witches in general, what are your favorite things about it?
I mean, you know me, I love history. I was a major in history. I try and incorporate history in my stories, whether I'm surviving the my characters are surviving the apocalypse or whatever. Like I want there to be something in there. So I really love the amount of history that is in, like, I can just appreciate, I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure like diehard fans know this answer, but I don't even know how much time she spent. I know she's also a scholar and
she's a historian,
probably a teacher. Yeah, I was like, yeah. But like the amount of knowledge that went into writing this, I understand that it's fiction. I understand that it's fantasy, but it's
hardcore. This is
so much history, people. Like I hope people can really appreciate that about this series because it's insane. And
like the way she talks about
the amount of time,
like the different manuscripts, even just the process of studying a manuscript, calling it from the Bodleian Library, studying a manuscript. Although I have heard that there's some errors in terms of it's a little bit outdated, like the way that you call a manuscript. But by the time that this was published, it was not the same way. Anyway, like they use pneumatic tubes in the books in book 3. That doesn't matter because we're not talking about that. Those are no longer used at Oxford. Apparently, I read. Yes, the history and the alchemy element, and
alchemy itself is like this fantastical thing that does anybody really understand?
No, but
I don't think so.
Deborah Harkness does.
Yeah.
And so that's what Diana is, a historian of alchemy.
Right. And I think that's why I think that's people like us who really enjoy history really like grasp hold of this series and appreciate it because we totally like get enthralled. I think I've heard people who don't like it because they're like, oh, it's like so wordy and it goes on and on and on. And I think that's people who they probably don't. And I'm not like saying that anybody who didn't appreciate this series or didn't like it, like teach its own, you know, it's not my favorite series ever, but I did enjoy it because of these aspects. But I think people in general that I've talked to, especially like talking about TikTokers and stuff, book talkers who didn't like it, I think it's because there's so much detail and there's so much history that's not their thing, right?
Yeah.
So of course,
like the thing that we love is the thing that turns some people off.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? Like if you're not a romance author, you're not going to read J.R. Ward, who writes about vampires screwing people and cursing and you know, like you know what I mean? Like it's just, it makes sense.
Yes. But like I love a book like this where I can be like, I wonder if that's real. And then I can go look it up and like learn something, or I can go look up pictures of the Bodleian Library, or I can, you know, like all this stuff. Like,
yeah. So that was something that I really appreciated about both the series and this book, and in two very different ways, because I feel like the book is really good about going into depth and detail about things, even if sometimes I was like, okay, let's move on. Like there's an appreciation there, you know, like regardless of my impatience as a reader, like there's an appreciation there. I really liked that the story was so visual and really helped bring a lot of those things to life.
Yes,
I would have never seen otherwise. Have I ever? Never gonna go to Oxford, like, you know, like what's real, like I felt like I could, and like even like really immersed, you know,
things that are not strictly academic, like it's not academic, but you still learn a lot about Oxford, the university, and the different colleges, and like how that whole thing works,
or like what a professor, like the quarters they would be living in and what that is like, and they're just like little dorms and like shit like that. I was just like, So you're not living in a fancy castle. You're literally living in a dorm with like one bedroom.
I totally wrote down
apartment.
That one of my favorite things is the descriptions in this. It's also one of the things that makes me roll my eyes sometimes. But this, like the descriptions of the setting, the wine, the food, the people. I will say some of the wine descriptions get super over the top.
Yeah, again, I feel like there's times where you like pick and choose where you're really going to go into detail.
I mean, I like Matthew's descriptions of like what he smells and tastes in wine
As a vampire, yeah.
as a vampire I'm like, I have to assume that Deborah Harkness put this in there purposely to be ridiculous and over the top, because he's like, cherries macerated in brandy and blackberries from like the drive
south
leading
of
up to my
France or
house,
some
or
shit,
like
yeah.
it's just like the most specific things that it's like, okay.
Yeah. It's funny.
But it also like makes me hungry and want wine and food and like fancy.
I know, right?
So
can I just say, I've been watching Peaky Blinders and they smoke and drink so much. All I want to do is just drink constantly when I'm watching it.
Go out and have a cigar.
I'm like, can I just kick back some bourbon, please? Okay. Anyway, go ahead.
So another thing that I really love, but my favorite kinds of books, so paranormal romance or urban fantasy, my favorite genres. My favorite version of those are books that have like a hidden world. So like the magical otheriness about it is, it's like it could really exist in our world that we live in right now. This is that kind of series,
Yeah.
you know. So the witches, the vampires, the demons, they're a part of our current world and nobody knows about them. The humans. I mean, some humans do, but most humans don't.
Yeah.
I absolutely love like Diana and Matthew's falling in love phase. And there were two specific parts that I wrote down that I wanted to mention. And so one is, they're totally insta love, by the way. Like it's very much like, you know, oh no, he's a vampire. I love him.
Like Edward and Bella. Okay.
Yeah. And like Matthew is like, has like vampire obsession with her, like Edward and Bella.
Oh, you know what? Now that, yeah. I remember thinking that actually when I was reading it again or listening, I was like, oh God, this is like, is he going to glitter next? Like,
no, he doesn't glitter.
Shimmer.
But he does talk about her witch's blood singing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Does he make a stinky face when she walks in the room? Okay, sorry, I digress. Moving on.
Oh
my God.
But I have to say, you know that scene in the show, maybe you don't remember this because you watched it like a year ago, but there's a scene in the show, I want to say it's like episode 1, but Matthew like smells Diana's sweater.
Yes, and at the rowing thing,
yes,
or whatever.
And he's like,
yeah, the rowing, whatever they call it. Yeah. No, I was actually waiting for that scene when I was listening to the book. I was like, this doesn't happen. They don't even introduce rowing until halfway through the story. Anyway, again.
Oh my God, it's so funny. Yeah, that scene, the face that he makes, he's just like it's like the most intense sniffing face ever.
Yeah, it's
really intense. Anyway, but I really love, and it's like a little bit like creepy, but I love he tells, before he and Diana get involved, or even really before they're friends, he tells her, he's like, friendships between vampires or friendships with vampires can be difficult, or friendships between warm bloods and vampires can be difficult, or something like that. And then she's like getting freaked out by his like kind of controlling, domineering vampiriness. And he's like, I told you relationships with vampires can be difficult. So he like created his own get out of jail free card to like be a controlling vampire, and I still love him for it. Okay,
well, how many thousands of years has he been alive? He definitely learned how to manipulate the system.
Yes, right? He totally did. Yeah, so, and I know I already talked about Sarah and Em. I love them so much. And this, like, the 3 settings that I wrote down to talk about were the Bishop House. I love the Bishop House when they go back to the Bishop House.
I had a note about that too.
Yeah, there's like the ghosts of like the ancestors, and the house is like alive. It's amazing. And then Septours is awesome. Matthew's family castle.
Yeah, you know, because everyone has one of those.
Where they spend some time. And then the Bodleian Library is amazing as well, at Oxford. So those were some of my favorite things.
Yeah.
From my 8,000 reads of this. Okay, least favorite things about the book show. Anything. I just have a couple.
I think for me, least favorite things. I mean, I kind of already touched on that. Like, I feel like I got kind of like humdrum and bored with a lot of the detail when it was excessive in some areas. But I don't know. This is hard because this kind of goes into what the book and the show did, differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can skip because I think all of there's one thing that I have for both.
Okay, why don't you do that one and then we can go into it, because I feel like a lot of mine are kind of
okay. So mine, I feel like it's born of like defensiveness about myself and my personal habits, which is like Diana is super into exercise. She's like exercising all the time.
She really is.
Yeah.
But
and
I kind of interpreted that as because she's not using her magic, so she has to have an outlet, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And as the series goes on, it goes away.
Yeah. There's no more rowing yet.
But she's like she's like rowing and running and doing yoga and like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
All the time. And in my head, I'm like, this girl needs to be eating way more than this. And there's a scene where the first like meal that she and Matthew have together, sharing a table. He's not eating because he's a vampire. I remember that meal when Bella and Edward eat, and she like makes him eat a ravioli, and then he has to like go vomit it up.
Is that? Yep, I do. At the restaurant.
She's like, I'm really hungry. And then she orders like 2 eggs and some hash browns and some toast. And I'm like,
you're like,
that's what you eat when you're really hungry.
Yeah. I know, right?
But I mean, that is just me being defensive and extra critiquey of a character. That's
so funny. I didn't even like register that, but I can see that. Yeah.
Okay, so what did you feel like the show or the book did better?
So I really like going back to what you were talking about, settings and the house. The Bishop House is explained so much better in the book than it is in the show, and it has so much more personality. It actually has characters that are not in, like Grandma and all those people, like
the ghosts.
They actually have personalities that is not in the show, and I feel like they could have done that. Like, I don't know why they didn't, but I really appreciated that. I feel like the book, obviously, because we talked about how long it is and how much detail there is, there's a lot more information about her parents and what happened to her, which I think is only loosely explained, especially in the first season. So I really appreciated that. And what else? So I put like the background with her parents, the house, even the book. I feel so
Ashmole 782.
Yeah. So I feel like there's a lot more description, or it made more sense to me reading it for the second time than it did watching the show after reading it, because I know there's a lot of space in between, but I just feel like the story, it really kind of explained everything a little bit more. And I feel like way earlier on than what they do in the show is they start connecting all the creatures connected to her, because of her blood, which I don't feel like they do in the show, as at least not as obviously. They start hanging around, but they make it seem like it's because of the book. It doesn't have a lot to do with her until I think season 2 or 3. So I really like that they really kind of start explaining all that stuff earlier in the book. It makes more sense. But on the other side of that is they also introduce a lot of things a lot later in the book than they do in the show, which I preferred learning about. Meeting Satu, is that how you say her name?
It's like Satu Marvel, or something.
So like you don't meet her till almost the end, like the last quarter of the book, really.
She plays she's one of the things I wrote down for the book did better. Her role was way bigger in the show in a very confusing way. Like I didn't understand.
Well, even the council is in the entire season, but in the book they're mentioned, but they're only in the last.
But and I think that's because like in the book, for the most part, we're in Diana's first person point of view. So we only know what Diana knows.
That's true.
And in the show, they added in, I wish that they had just stuck to Diana's point of view in the show. I feel like then it would ease us into the world better. But instead we have like, we see Juliet and what she's doing in Venice, and we see the council or the congregation, and we see, you know, other stuff. Like there's only a couple chapters that are not from Diana's point of view in the book. And those are told in third person, I think, to further distance the reader from those points of view.
And also it's interesting you bring up Juliet, because I was thinking about her a lot when I was reading, and because she's only brought up towards the end, it's interesting that in the show they bring her in the very first episode, or maybe it's the second one, but it's very early on. And her entire storyline, essentially, until she meets Matthew, is pointless. Like it adds nothing to the story.
Yeah, I think they were just following like Chekhov's gun. Like if you're gonna have a gun fire in scene 3, you need to introduce. So
yeah, it's just really interesting that they introduced a lot of people earlier on, which in a way I liked, because, but again, I think it's because I watching the show most recently first and then reading it, I was like, where are all these characters? And then they're like almost all like piled in the end.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that they were introduced, but when I really stop and think about it, I'm like, what was the point of introducing
them? Well, and I think that a lot of them are mentioned kind of in passing.
Oh, and they
earlier
are.
parts.
They definitely are.
And that's hard. I think that I'm sure the writers had a harder time figuring out how to make that memorable to viewers, you know. Whereas I know Juliet is mentioned. You know, like Peter Knox, we just like get little snippets of in the book until he's
definitely not as big of a character.
Yeah, he's a very important character, but I like not seeing his point of view. I like just seeing him through Diana's eyes, and he is awful.
Yeah, he's awful enough that way. You don't have to have him meeting, like going and finding Satu
and
you don't need all that.
Yeah,
that's really confusing, actually.
Yeah, so Satu is one of the things I wrote down. I also really preferred the book version. Nothing against the actress, but the way that the character was written in the show for Gillian Chamberlain. I really prefer the book version. In the show, she was written as like kind of. She's like the witch, like friend / mild
she's like
antagonist.
Really meek and like timid, and
yeah, she's like a little mouse in the show. And in the book, she's like very catty and like spiteful, that Diana's not.
Definitely different.
Yeah, I mean, it shows us a lot of there's a heavy vein of stereotypes and prejudices between the different magical races that runs through the story. And like Sarah Bishop, Diana's aunt, is like extremely prejudiced against the other types of creatures, demons and vampires. And then Gillian is like super, I guess, pissy at Diana for picking a vampire over a witch to like spend time with. And so then she kind of works with Peter Knox and does some bad stuff. But in the show, she's like very much kind of almost like bullied by Peter Knox. I don't know. I just didn't like the way that it came across in the show. But my biggest thing about the book that I didn't like about the way that they did it in the show, I did not at all like the way that they made the magic look in the show. It was nothing like what was described in the books, and it really irritated me.
How did they make it look different?
It's like white and flowy. In the books, it's very colorful, and it's like ribbons, the way Diana sees it. She talks about ribbons.
It's okay. It's definitely like that later on, just so you know.
Well, it should be in the first season.
Yeah. I'm just letting you know, eventually they get there.
It was all white. It was all white, flowy magic in season 1. And that really bothered me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's funny, I didn't notice that, but I also had 3 seasons in my brain to like reflect on, you know. Huh.
Maybe they got better special effects later or something.
At the end of season 1, I kept getting confused. So at the end of season 1, did they actually end season 1, the show, where they ended the books?
The books end with, or the book ends, I think it's from Sarah's point of view, isn't it? She comes back into the house after Diana and Matthew time walk. So the book, from Diana's perspective, I'm pretty sure, well, I'm not going to look at it right now, but I feel like, doesn't it end with Diana and Matthew time walking? They take a step, Peter Knox is trying to break in or something, or I don't know.
But I don't remember. I might be mistaken.
Maybe that's the show.
That's what I'm saying. I think that's the show, but I don't remember him. I kept waiting for him, and I
think that they just
missed an entire chapter.
Last one. No, I think that in the book they just time walk, and then Sarah comes back and talks about how the house is empty.
That's why I'm wondering, like,
I think they had to make it like more urgent for the show or something. I don't know.
I might be wrong, but I don't think that. I was waiting for them. I was waiting for Knox and people to like break in and like make them. Yeah. I don't think that happened.
No, I did love, I can't remember if this is in the show, but in the book, there's a scene where there's like the teenage witch is like trick-or-treating, and
yeah, they had that in the book.
I love that. I love that.
I don't think that's in the.
I don't think it's in the show.
Yeah.
No, but I love that. It was like, right. They're like
preparing. We'll blow out the kid. We'll blow out that jack-o'-lanterns for you.
So cute. I don't know why I love
because they wanted to see like the vampire and the witch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
So, I only have. Do you have anything else for what the book did better that you want to talk about?
I don't think so. Mostly it just explained a lot of things that I don't think were so clear in the story.
Yeah.
Or at least it took a long time to get to the clarity for me. So, yeah.
Okay. I have one thing for what I felt like the show did better. Do you have anything for what you feel like the show did better?
Well, I mean,
season 1.
I'm a visual person, so literally
seeing it
is helpful. So other than that, like nothing is glaringly like coming to life. Why? What are you thinking? Just
Alex Kingston as Sarah Bishop. Like,
oh,
Sarah is very abrasive in the books. Extremely abrasive.
She hangs up the phone.
Yeah, she's just
angry. She's temperamental. She's
has like
opinions.
A little bit of a bully, like minorly like emotionally abusive. Like, I don't know. Like, she's
you almost are like poor M.
Poor M. Like poor Diana for like at least she had M to help raise her. You know, but Sarah Bishop in the show, played by Alex Kingston, is just perfection. She is perfect. I feel like I already know what you're going to say, but which did you prefer, the book or the show?
Well, that's hard, right? Because I haven't finished the series, and it's not because I didn't enjoy the books. It's just because they're so long and it's just instant gratification, right? It doesn't mean I don't want to. I would like to finish the series and compare them. But I really did enjoy the show. I feel like as far as adaptations go, I feel like they did a really good job.
Yes.
I feel like all the really important points, the chronological, like it's all pretty good.
I feel like we need to mention this is a very difficult book series to adapt because it takes place in the past, and it has I feel like I'm talking really loud. It has extremely like big settings.
Yeah, it does.
Elizabethan England.
Oxford College.
Yeah. You know, like as it goes on throughout the series, again, talking about later in the series, but like big settings, at least in season 1, they're like not as, I guess, looking at it from like a production point of view, expensive to film.
Yeah, no, it's big, and definitely I would be, just because like, especially watching season 2 and 3, I would be interested to compare the books because of all of the stuff that I know that's going to happen. I would be interested to see how it all pans out for sure.
Yeah.
Because there are some intense scenes coming up in the next
I know. I think that the reason that I haven't finished. I know why I've stalled in season 2. I know why. And so like for people who require or who prefer or like content warnings or trigger warnings, there's a pregnancy loss. And I know that's why I can't like even when I reread this or when I've reread the series, I just skip over that part in book 2. I was like, I just can't do it anymore. So I know that I know that's exactly where I'm paused in the show. I'm like, oh no, it's coming. I can't keep going. So I just need to like fast forward past it. And Matthew turns into such a dick in the books. Sorry. For a little while.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
After the miscarriage, he becomes a total a-hole.
Well, it's really interesting because that actually I don't know why that reminded me, but they also go to New Orleans too. You're like you said, there's a lot of sets for this. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, in book 2, they're in Elizabethan England. They go to Prague. And we're not talking about modern Prague. We're not talking about modern England. Like Elizabethan England burned down. Like,
yeah, it's really interesting.
So, my preference is for the books.
Right. Yeah.
But
I wish I could weigh in more. I feel like I am totally ill-equipped to answer this question because it's so skewed.
Yeah.
Just because I haven't read all the books, but I've seen the whole show out of, total convenience.
I will say I'm really excited to finish the show now that we've been talking about it. So that's probably what I'm going to watch next by myself. So will you be continuing? Are you going to finish the books?
I would like to. I think for me, just because how long they are, it's a matter of time, but I would like to. What I'll probably do is download them. And then whenever I don't have something to read for the podcast or my book club or whatever, I can maybe try and squeeze it in, but I would like to.
Cool.
Especially now that I've watched it, like, why not,
Yeah. All right. Well, is there anything final you would like to add about this?
I think that, no, I mean, it's definitely, if you haven't read the books, but you've watched the show, it's definitely an investment. Like I said, it's
of time.
Yeah, it really is. Because they're long books and they're kind of dense as far as like all of the stuff that's packed inside them. So I think that, I mean, if you haven't watched the entire series, and you haven't read the series, or like if you haven't watched the whole series and you haven't even read the series, I would at least try and finish the series. Like, I just feel like I feel like it's a really fun show in general, but I also love like that little romance. And I know I'm not like a huge super like fantasy fan, but I really like it. It's the historical piece. The historical piece is what reels me in as a reader, as a viewer. Like, I love the historical drama part of it.
Yeah. I always felt like a Discovery of Witches in the All Souls trilogy was like fantasy light. Like, it's not like super extreme fantasy. You know?
It's not this crazy magic system that you have to like take a step back and like, wait, what? It's demons and vampires and things that witches, people are aware of these things. It's more like there's little nuances and things that are changed and different and specific to the series, but you get what they are and what they do. So it's not some new fandangled thing that's really really scientific and hard to follow or whatever. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I know that I said some critical things, but like I said, it's one of my all-time favorite books. And I feel like if we were to talk about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I would have a million critical things to say. And that is my favorite show that has ever been created, despite Joss Whedon's most recent revelations.
Right. Question. I'm just thinking, maybe this is just me. I know it's different because it's fantasy and it has the magical element, but would you say that like if you are a fan of the Outlander series,
yes,
you would be a fan of this series? Yes. Okay, that's what I think too.
I think those are actually great parallels in terms of the level of, there's less of the fantasy element in Outlander. It's basically just the time travel and then there's the stones. That's it. But yeah, I would.
But there's that romantic element. There's that history element.
Yes.
It seems very comparable.
Yes. So. And also, the Echo trilogy, Echo in Time fits into that vein. And whenever I ask my readers for comps, for comp books, they always say A Discovery of Witches and Outlander. Those are always the two that they say. So I definitely feel like A Discovery of Witches and Outlander fit in the same, at least they appeal to the same readers.
Okay, good to know. That's what that's kind of what I was thinking too. So that's what I wanted to double check.
Yeah. Yeah. A Discovery of Witches almost fits better with Outlander than it fits with most like paranormal romance books.
And I will just say, I am a big Outlander fan. I'm not like obsessed with it or anything, but I do enjoy it. Even I struggled with the first book because I felt like I was like, oh my God,
a lot
this
in
thing
there.
is so big and there's so much going on. So if you can get through that, I feel like you can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She also is a big describer.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man, it's us people who love history. It's
yes.
like, everybody needs to know the information we know. Obviously.
Yes. Everything. You need to know why I put this in here. I need to give you all the background information.
There's a reason it's in here, and I'm going to tell you why in 5 chapters.
100%. Been there, done that. So yeah, thank you for listening, everybody. Don't forget to check out the show notes for this episode's links and book recommendations. And I did not talk about something that I wanted to talk about, so I will talk about it next episode because we have gone crazy long. Patreon. So we will be back in a couple weeks to chat about our next book talk book, which I am so excited about. It is a book I have not read, which I feel like
neither of us have.
So that's exciting. And I think we're both going to love it. From everything I've heard about it, it is another one that a lot of my readers love. It is A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. It's this right here, this book. I am so excited. I've been so excited about this series for so long that I have already ordered the like super fancy special editions that Bookish Box is doing.
Nice.
So like, I can't wait to talk about this and read this. And I'm really excited. It's a modern Hades and Persephone fantasy, like I think paranormal romance, spicy. Based on the fan art. Super spicy.
Alrighty.
So I'm excited about
exciting.
That. Like maybe not like Neon God spicy, but still spicy. If we're talking about Hades and Persephone retellings. So I'm really excited. It's gonna be super fun. If you are enjoying this show, we would love it if you left us a rating and or a review on iTunes or anywhere else that allows ratings or reviews for podcasts. And come and join our Facebook group, which is also linked in the show notes. And I'm just going to keep waving my hands around. So until next time, happy reading.
Happy reading.